everybody. Welcome to this day of fundraising and M&A. My name is Alina Soltys. I'm a founder and partner at Quantum Tech Partners. We are a global gaming M&A and fundraising advisory group. We've been in the space helping gaming and tech companies over the last 15 years and have been lucky and fortunate enough to partner with over 70 founders we've helped close their transactions. So to get right into it, this is fundraising information that our group pulls together to make sure we're keeping a close pulse on the market. And if we take a look at the first half of this year, we're actually posting some really strong numbers. They're already larger than 2024, double that of 2023. And if you take a look at the chart, it's on pace to hit 2021. And so a lot of us are probably thinking, how's that right? It doesn't feel like it in the broader sense of the word. And the one thing that is driving all of this activity is late stage deals. So there's a ton of debt refinancings, there's new debt being raised, a lot of public share issuances, and it's really as a function of A, refinancing, but also B, having a lot of capital on the balance sheet to be able to do more strategic things with that. So if we take a look at something that is probably more relevant to us day to day, the early stage piece, this is data from 2023 through now. And a couple of things I want to highlight. So number one, if we look at average for 23, that was about $510 million coming in on a quarterly basis. Today, in 2025, that's down to $328 million. And so that 180 million gap approximately really makes a big impact when you're talking about smaller studios that are raising less, trying to do more with it. It just has a lot of impact there. I think the good news is, as you'll see, we've hit the bottom. That was in Q1. We're going up already. You see it by the count of transactions. We're also seeing that in our kind of day-to-day conversations with folks. And so that feels like we're already turning a new leaf on fundraising. And one thing I'll footnote here is this is just equity deals. So we know publishing, project financing have a big impact in the gaming space for funding. That's not included here. So what's happening in M&A? We'll start with taking a look at where are public companies trading. They are at very healthy levels. So 4.5 times revenue multiples, 15 times EBITDA multiples. The biggest thing on here that I'll have you pay attention to is the cash on the balance sheet. So out of this index of companies that we track, there's 81.5 billion, which is the highest number we've been tracking so far. And that's a function of a couple things. So number one, a lot of companies have done significant cost reductions, improving their margins. And then number two, a lot of these companies are actually now posting record quarters and are doing really well. And so that cash is growing very quickly and will be resulting in the fact that they need to do something with it. They can't just be sitting on the cash. And so that's where we come to the M&A side of things. So far this year, it's about equal in terms of where we saw 2024 and 23 activity. It's right-sized, certainly, especially post-COVID. And this is something that we feel is in a healthy area. One thing when we look at this data is it's all backwards looking, right? So this is stuff that's been in the works for months, quarters, sometimes years, and it's finally getting recorded here. The thing that we're seeing today in conversations with buyers and with investors is a huge amount of velocity in transactions. And those are going to be recorded as we come into the next kind of rest of this year, into early Q1 of next year. But the market has really shifted. And it's now a lot more high activity when we talk to buyers. They're looking at multiple transactions at once. They have multiple offers out at once. And so we're seeing the tide move towards a healthy place. It's not going to be crazy, which we don't want crazy. We want, solid activity for good reasons. And we see this also in the quarterly data. So the last 6 quarters have been pretty consistent. We're slightly higher now post-COVID than pre-COVID. And it's also a sign of maturity in our overall industry. So if we take a step back from the data and maybe do something fun, which is taking a look at where the opportunities. This is coming from the perspective of we talk to hundreds of companies a year and oftentimes pick up on trends and themes. And so this is a couple of the ones that we've been seeing much more consistently recently, and just wanted to share that with you all as you're thinking about how do you keep building your groups and your studios. So number one, small budget indies. These are not going away. A lot of people are thinking about kind of how do you find your place in the marketplace, especially with all the AAA kind of news happening. We love small budget indies. These are groups that are super passionate, have creative vision around what they're building, how they're gonna get to their players. They understand deeply what the players want. And then there's some creativity on distribution, right? Distribution is of course a challenge, but this is a standout kind of group of folks that released this year, and the size of their team and how well they were able to scale. So this is continuing to be a reoccurring piece of the overall market, no matter what anybody says. And I wanted to do a deep dive just on Peak as a case study. One reason being that AgroCrab is here in Seattle, and being at Slice in Seattle, this felt appropriate to highlight their success. And this is also a new type of methodology, perhaps, of working with people. So this is two studios that came together. Of course, they had a lot of trust and mutual respect for one another. When they came to build this game, they built it really quickly. So that's another interesting thing to keep in mind. 4 months from game jam through release. 1 month that they spent together building this, quickly found the fun, and then went home and reiterated on everything that they were doing. And then the other piece, which is something that we have to think about all the time, is distribution. There's thousands of games that come on Steam. They decided to do it with very unique, thoughtful pricing. So day one, heavily discounted. Help drive new users in there, start playing. All of a sudden, that drove to virality because all the players were really happy with what they got. They deemed it as really good value. And that resulted in 5 million copies being sold within the first month. So, it's a fantastic story. I think the piece here to think about is, are there these types of working relationships with other studios that might be worth entertaining? And then also the distribution piece. It's not just about marketing, sometimes it's about pricing too. And then the third avenue that I kind of wanted to mention and highlight, it's somewhat of an elephant in the room. It used to be, I don't think it should be anymore, which is Roblox. We often talk about UGC as elements in games. We of course can't ignore the two largest UGC platforms out there. And when you think about Roblox, most of us already view it as a pretty mature platform, yet they've already hit a 41% DAU growth rate year over year just this last quarter. And so it's kind of an extraordinary story that shows players are everywhere worldwide. You have a completely large age range of players who are on there, and they're rewarding developers to the tune of 1.1 billion paid out in the last 12 months for experiences that find the fun quickly. And if we go back to the point about Peak of building a game in 4 months, a lot of these guys are building games in days or weeks. And that is really the epitome of having kind of a democratic process of having game folks come and play and try your game really quickly and see if it works or if it doesn't. Fortnite is also kind of the second large player on UGC here. They paid about $352 million out to players last year. They're certainly still growing, and a lot of things need to continue to mature to be a really great place for developers to be, but we're super positive about both of these. And I think the interesting thing about Roblox still continues to be that they're setting records all over the place. So just over the weekend, they set a concurrent record for their platform of 47.4 million. Compared to Steam, so Steam's all-time high was 40.3. And so that's just a continued sign of the dominance that Roblox is having and something for us to think about and consider. So if you guys want to subscribe to our quarterly reports, we focus on having small, punchy, to the point types of reports. Take a look at that QR code, or if you want to get in touch, feel free to message either one of us. Thank you, everybody.